You know, I spend so much time eating, but I've never really, focused on how does my digestive system work? How does this food get processed? So today, I've got a nice little hamburger here. Um, we're gonna eat it, and we're gonna teach ourselves more about the digestive system. That's awful. The gastrointestinal tract, more commonly referred to as the GI tract, consists of the mouth, esophagus, stomach, small intestine, large intestine, and anus. The liver, gallbladder, and pancreas, combined with the GI tract, constitutes the digestive system, a system which is responsible for the ingestion of food, breakdown of food, absorption of nutrients, and excretion of waste. So, there are two types of digestion: mechanical and chemical. So mechanical is more kind of like the physical digestion of food. Um, in this case, it's chewing in the mouth. It's breaking it down into smaller substances. And then chemical digestion is breaking it down into smaller soluble chemicals. This occurs in the stomach through the addition of saliva and other substances. So basically, once food enters the mouth, the chewing will break it down into smaller substances, and the salivary glands will add saliva. And so basically, there's a process called peristalsis. And so peristalsis is the involuntary contraction and relaxation of muscles on an intestine or on canals or walls. And basically, this will push the food forward. And so when you swallow, when the food starts going to your esophagus, the epiglottis is a little flap um, on like your windpipe, and it prevents choking as food passes down in the esophagus. So there's the mouth. So basically, once the food gets broken down in the mouth through mechanical digestion, it will pass down to the esophagus. So the esophagus is kind of like a really big tube that the food goes through. And peristalsis, as I previously mentioned, the contraction and relaxation of muscles in the intestine or on the wall. This is really important here, and it really pushes the food down. That's why, like, if you're standing upside down, like on your head, you can still swallow the food because that peristalsis motion is so strong. And so once it goes past the esophagus, it reaches the stomach, and the stomach is one of the most important organs in the digestive system. It's where the food is really broken down, especially chemically. It breaks down the food into a more liquidy substance called chyme. So basically, the more solidified food, known as the bolus, will enter the stomach and will be combined with acidic gastric juices and enzymes, thus creating the liquidy substance I mentioned earlier, chyme. And specifically, the first step in digestion in the stomach is that muscular walls of the stomach help to churn and break up the bolus. It's a really, really muscular organ, so that's really important in the first step of digestion. So the second step is actually hydrolysis, and in this case, it's kind of an enzyme-assisted breakdown of the bolus. So that's it for the esophagus and the stomach. Also, if you'd like a more detailed and specific explanation of the stomach's physiology and processes, check the link right there. And we're back with the small intestine. The small intestine, like the stomach, is one of the most crucial organs in the digestive system. The chyme from the stomach enters the first part of the small intestine, known as the duodenum. And in the duodenum, the liver and the gallbladder make their appearances. They deposit bile into this section of the small intestine. The liver produces the bile, and the gallbladder stores it. Additionally, the pancreas will also deliver some enzymes to this section. Here's an interesting fact. The duodenum is the place in the whole GI tract where the most breakdown of food occurs. After the duodenum comes the jejunum, the place in which the most absorption of nutrients occurs. And the last part of the small intestine is known as the ileum, and vitamins such as vitamin A and D are absorbed here, so it's really crucial for absorption. And the small intestine, it moves water from your bloodstream into your GI tract, and this helps break down food. The intestine also absorbs water with other nutrients, and this water will eventually help compact the material moving through your digestive system. And so basically, in the small intestine, absorption is the main process, which is made possible through millions of tiny finger-like projections called villi. And these villus, have a large surface area to help increase the rate of absorption. And bacteria also play a huge role in the small intestine because the bacteria in the small intestine are used to create enzymes which digest carbohydrates. That's it for the small intestine. I'm here to talk to you now about the large intestine. It comes right after the small intestine. It can be up to 7 feet in length. So they're not one, nor two, nor three, but in fact 4 parts of the large intestine. The first is the ascending colon. Second is the transverse colon. Third is the descending colon. And fourth is the sigmoid colon. And so basically in the large intestine, the waste is moved through the large intestine by the process of peristalsis. And when this waste passes through the colon, the water added by the small intestine is removed, and this waste becomes stool. So that's basically it for the large intestine. So at last we have the rectum and the anus. So the rectum really only serves one main purpose, and that's the storage of stool. And for the anal sphincter is responsible for the release or holding of stool. And so once the stool reaches the rectum, a signal is sent, bowel movements, telling the anal sphincter to release the stool and let it pass through. Thus the process of excretion, and that's the end of the digestive tract. Whoa, guys. I just went through the digestive process. That was really, really cool. So let me explain it. So, in the past day, I was a hamburger with cheese, some meat, and some grains, some carbohydrates. And so basically, pretty awful hamburger to be honest. I started off in the mouth with some mechanical digestion, and the salivary glands added some saliva, just threw some saliva in there. And after the mouth, I went down the esophagus. I used peristalsis, and that really just sent me all the way down to the stomach, where I mixed with some some acidic gastric juices and other substances, and I was turned into chyme. I went from a bolus in the esophagus to a chyme in the stomach, and so then I went to the small intestine. I started off in the duodenum, and that's really where the absorption processes really took place. And so after the duodenum, I went to the jejunum, where the most absorption happens. A lot of my nutrients were absorbed. After that, I went to the ileum, also really, really important section of the small intestine for absorption. And so after, the small intestine took some water from my bloodstream, put it in the old GI system, I went to the large intestine. And after during the large intestine, I had a pretty good time. I became more of a harder substance because I was preparing to leave the body. And so after the large intestine and the colon, the main part of the large intestine, I went through that to the rectum, where I was stored for a little while. But then, I'm sure the guy that ate me, he had some bowel movements. So he was told that his anal sphincter needed to release me, basically. Release me in other ways from the rectum. And, I was excreted, and somehow magically I turned back into a human being. So that was my journey. A really, really insightful one. Thank you for watching. I'm Neil Malik.